Welcome to Web Development Through Practice. In the last video, we learned about Laravel collections, how to create them, and how to extend them. Now, let's go through collection methods one by one with practical examples. So, make sure to watch till the end. 1. After method. This method returns the item that comes after a specified item. If the specified item is not found or if it is the last item in the collection, the method will return a null value. For example, if we have a collection of integers from 1 to 5 and we want to find the value that comes after 3, we use the after method. The output will be 4. However, if we look for the value that comes after 5, it will return null since there is no item after 5. In another example, if we replace the integer 3 with the string 3 and run the code again, it will still return 4. However, to ensure strict comparison, we can set the strict attribute to true. In this case, the code will return null because the string value 3 is not found in the collection. 2. All method. This method returns the original PHP array, known as the underlying array, that is represented by the collection. In the same example, if we apply the all method and run the code, we will see that it returns the underlying array. 3. Average method. This method returns the average value of a specified key within the collection. 4. Before method. This method is the opposite of the after method. It returns the item that comes before the specified item. If the given item is not found or if it is the first item in the collection, null is returned. 5. Chunk method. This method breaks a collection into multiple smaller collections of a specified size. It is especially useful in views when working with a grid system, such as Bootstrap. For example, imagine you have a collection of product eloquent models and you wish to display 3 products per row in a Bootstrap grid. To implement the chunk method, you will need the product model, the products table, and a view for displaying the products. In my project, I've already set these up. First, include the product model in your collection controller and write code to fetch all product details, storing them in the $products variable. Next, create a view to display the products using Bootstrap. You'll pass the $products variable to this product view. To display 3 products per row in a Bootstrap grid, create a container, div, and use a for each loop on the $products with a chunk size of 3. Here, you'll see that I am not using the collect helper. We can directly use the chunk method for database records. After saving all code changes, refresh the browser page, and you'll see that 3 products are displayed in each row. If you change the chunk size to 4 and refresh the page, you will see 4 products per row. The chunk method is a useful tool for creating a responsive website. 6. The chunk while method is used to split a collection into chunks based on a specified condition. This method dynamically creates chunks as long as the condition remains true. For example, as explained on the Laravel official website, we can use the str_split function to convert a string into an array, returning each character as an element of that array. We then wrap this array into a Laravel collection, enabling us to use the chunk while method. Next, we define the chunk while method, which checks if the current value is equal to the last item in the current chunk. For instance, it first checks the letter A against the last value. Since there is no value before A, it returns null and creates a new chunk. Then, it checks the next A against the last letter A, which matches, so it continues. When it checks the next letter B, which does not match the last letter A, it creates a new chunk for the letter B, and so on. Consequently, new chunks are generated whenever the condition evaluates to false. 7. The collapse method is used to convert a multi-dimensional array collection into a single, one-dimensional collection. For instance, if we have a collection of multi-dimensional arrays and we apply the collapse method, we can use the wall method to display the results. After saving the changes and refreshing the URL, you'll see that a single-dimensional array is returned. 8. The collapse with a case method is designed to convert a multi-dimensional, nested, associative array into a one-dimensional, flat, array while preserving the original keys of each element without losing or modifying them. As an example, if we have a multi-dimensional array collection and we define the collapse with a case method, the result will display a single associative array. Next, the collect method, which we've already seen, is used to create new collections in Laravel. The official Laravel website defines the collect method as primarily useful for converting lazy collections into standard collection instances. Let's see how it works. If you click on the link for lazy collections, you'll find detailed information. However, there is a note stating, before learning more about Laravel's lazy collections, take some time to familiarize yourself with PHP generators. So, let's first understand what PHP generators are. In PHP, generators are functions that use the yield keyword to return values one at a time, rather than returning an entire array at once. Consider an example where I have a large database of product records. To fetch all products, I use the product model with the all method and store the results in the $products variable. To display the product details, we use a for each loop. The drawback is that this approach loads all products into memory at once. If there are 1 million products, this could lead to memory exhaustion and slow down performance. By using PHP generators with the yield keyword, you can process one product at a time without keeping all products in memory. This means there's no need to store all products in an array, and data is fetched only when needed. This approach is also useful for exporting large product lists to CSV or sending large product data via API. With that, we have clarified the concept of PHP generators. Now, let's see how lazy collections work. Now, let's implement PHP generators using the test collection methods method. In this method, we fetch product data and return it using the yield keyword. The return type here is not an array or a collection, instead, it returns an iterator. To display the products, we need to define another function called displayProducts. In this function, we call test collection methods and store the result in a variable called $products. If you attempt to print this variable, you will encounter an error. Similarly, using the count function will also result in an error because the result is not an array. Furthermore, if you try to use collection methods, such as the map function, you will also receive an error, as it is not a collection. Since it returns an iterator, you can only use it within a loop, like a for each loop. Therefore, we define a for each loop to display the product names. Now, you should see a list of product names displayed. Going back to the controller file in the test collection methods function, you'll notice that we use the cursor function instead of the $doll function. The reason for this is that using the all function loads all products into memory at once, while the cursor function fetches one product at a time. A drawback of this approach is that we cannot use collection methods on the iterator, making it more difficult to modify. If we attempt to store the result of the PHP generator into an array and print it, we will encounter errors. To resolve these issues, we can use lazy collections. To implement a lazy collection, we start by including the lazy collection class at the top of our code. Next, we modify the test collection methods function by adding a for each loop that retrieves products in an iterator. We then use the lazy collection class with the make function, which returns an iterable lazy collection. In the displayProducts function, we call test collection methods and save the result in the $products variable. However, if we attempt to print $products, it returns the lazy collection object itself. This occurs because a lazy collection does not store data in memory like a normal Laravel collection. Instead, it fetches data only when we iterate over it, for example using for each. Therefore, the print statement does not work as expected. To print the contents, we would need to convert it into an array, but this is not recommended since it would load all product data into memory. The same limitation applies to the count function. If we want to use collection methods, such as the filter method to return products priced over 100, we save the filtered data into a $filtered variable and pass it into a for each loop to display the products. When we refresh the page in the browser, the product list will be displayed, showing that the filter collection method filters results without loading everything into memory. Lazy collection implementation is now complete. If you check the official Laravel website, you'll find examples of its use with a multi-gigabyte log file. Instead of loading the entire file into memory at once, lazy collections allow you to keep only a small part of the file in memory at any given time. Another example is fetching a large dataset of users using the all function, which loads all the data into memory simultaneously. Instead, you can use the cursor function, which allows you to run a single query against the database while keeping only one Eloquent model loaded in memory at a time. Next, let's discuss the enumerable contract. Lazy collection supports almost all methods from the collection class because both classes implement the illuminate /support/enumerable contract. While both collection and lazy collection support the same methods, the main difference is that the collection class stores all data in memory at once, whereas lazy collection retrieves data one item at a time. Lazy collection is ideal for large datasets as it fetches data sequentially. Now, let's discuss additional lazy collection methods. The first method is the takeUntilTimeout method, which is used to stop iterating after a specific time limit. For example, let's refer to an example explained on the Laravel website. Here, the lazy collection class uses the times (inf) function, which generates numbers from 1 to infinity. After that, the takeUntilTimeout lazy collection method is utilized, passing a duration of 1 minute, which means it stops executing after 1 minute. Then, we iterate through the lazy collection using the each function, printing each number and pausing for 1 second per iteration. This process continues until the 1-minute timer is reached. After saving the file, you can check the result by refreshing the page in your browser, where you will see the numbers from 1 to 59 displayed. Another example involves fetching pending invoices and processing them for a maximum of 14 minutes. In this case, we only fetch pending invoices using a lazy cursor. We use Laravel_start to determine when the request started and at 14 minutes to establish when to stop processing. The execution will be stopped after 14 minutes, and then we call $invoice submit for each pending invoice. The next method is the tapEach method, which allows you to perform an action on each item in the collection without modifying it. We will use the same example from the Laravel official website. Here, lazy collection times (inf) generates numbers from 1 to infinity. We register a function to dump each number, but it does not execute immediately. This execution occurs after triggering the iteration of the lazy collection using the wall method with the take method, which retrieves the first 3 numbers from the infinite sequence. After saving the file, you can see the results by refreshing the URL in your browser, where you will find the numbers 1 to 3 displayed. Another method is the throttle method. This method ensures that each value from the lazy collection is processed at fixed time intervals. It is especially useful in situations where you may be interacting with external APIs that limit the rate of incoming requests. For example, if you have external API authentication details but can only authenticate in 3 attempts, then your rate limit is 3. If you send too many requests in a short period, the API may block your IP or temporarily suspend your access. The throttle method helps solve this problem by ensuring that you don't exceed the limit. Another benefit of the throttle method is that it helps avoid memory overload by loading one record at a time instead of loading everything at once. For instance, the Laravel official website provides an example where it first retrieves only VIP users using the cursor method, which employs lazy loading to prevent memory overload. Then, by using the throttle method, it processes one user per second and iterates over the users to call the external API. This approach is efficient for handling large datasets and helps prevent API rate limiting issues. The next method is the remember method. This method ensures that once an item is processed, it does not need to be retrieved again when iterating multiple times. It stores values as they are retrieved, avoiding duplicate database queries. In the same example mentioned on the Laravel official website, initially, no query runs at this stage. The first 5 users are fetched from the database and stored in the lazy collection cache. Using the lazy collection methods like take and all, if you try to fetch 20 users afterward, the first 5 users come from memory, cached, while the next 15 users are retrieved from the database. This method helps avoid fetching the same data multiple times, reduces database load, and ensures smooth memory usage. I hope you understand the collection methods. The remaining collection methods are explained in the next part. Please be connected and thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.